Greetings and welcome back. We are now going to discuss Chapter 11, Emotional Behaviors. There's actually three major components or modules to this chapter. As you see in the book, it's what is emotion is the first module. The second one is attack and escape behaviors. And the third is dealing with stress and health. So we'll try to run through this conveniently to discuss each one of the modules and let you know what to and what not to focus on for the topics. So if we were in class, the question would be emotions. How do you define emotions? Just even looking at the word emotions. Anytime you see a word with an E on the front of it, it makes reference to things coming out of. If it's an A flux going in, efflux out. So E. And then this word emotion. So it's something coming out of it. So when we deal with that topic of emotion, that's what we're kind of expressing. So psychologists define it in terms of looking at cognition, action, and feeling. You combine all those, and it's now a way we can conceptualize what we would say emotion would be. So it's important to actually acknowledge another term called arousal, because you can be aroused and that can stimulate your emotions. So the question is, does the arousal come before emotion? Or is the emotion, then you have arousal from that? Think about anything that's dealing with getting some blood rushing to your muscles, getting into your brain. You don't have time to go to the bathroom. You're dealing with stress and emotions. So you have different components of your body that are responding to things that are going on externally and outside. So your body must be prepared to deal with that situation. So if there's arousal making you feel good or arousal making you feel fearful, your body's going through changes as that occurs. So you also have to have something going in your brain to figure out how to handle this. So arousal helps to stimulate the nervous system. And there's two parts of the nervous system that you should recall from our lecture. It's the autonomic nervous system, but there's two parts of the autonomic nervous system. One is the parasympathetic nervous system. One is the sympathetic nervous system. We'll see a drawing of it and we'll break it down later on. But again, the sympathetic nervous system is for energy promoting. The parasympathetic nervous system is for energy conserving. So slowing down. One speeds up like an accelerator, one slows down like a brake system. So here we have the description of it. So these lines here are showing the nerves going to the particular organs from the spinal cord. So you have a cranial sacral division, that is cranial top part, sacral bottom. That is pretty much your parasympathetic nervous system. Then you have some nerves that are coming right from the middle. That's the sympathetic nervous system. So it's going to the organs, but it's going from the thoracolumbar portion of the spinal cord. Thoracolumbar, sympathetic, or craniosacral down the bottom. That's going towards the organs also. But one's for acceleration, one's for slowing down. And here's a description of the organs that it talks to: the heart, the liver, the intestines, lungs. So all these particular organs are being innervated by the autonomic nervous system, controlling your organs without you even thinking about it. So emotions can be sometimes taken out of or be out of control, and then your organs aren't working properly. And as we see toward the end of this chapter, we start dealing with stress, how the way that this system is being overexerted, too much activity can cause a problem in your body. So, of course, people theorize on what emotion is. So, for the quick discussion here, James Lang theory, kind of related to, is an autonomic response first. So you're scared. Let's say you start crying. Or it must be because you're scared, so now you're associating an emotion with that physiological response. You feel your heart beating fast. So heart beating fast, well, you must be worried. So the autonomic arousal of the heart and now is associated with an emotion later. So again, crying, heart beating fast, those are physiological responses that occur first. Then you associate with an emotion. So the emotion felt is the label we give to that arousal. It's just a theory. Because the reality is that it's not exactly the case because you could cry, but you could cry because you're happy, not because you're sad. Your heart might beat fast because you're scared, but also because you just might be in love. So two different scenarios of emotions, but again, we can't just label one particular arousal as it's always going to be a certain kind of emotion. But that's what the James Lang theory is referencing. As the book gives you a little kind of breakdown, there's a James Lang theory, and then it's the common sense theory. Pretty much you see a frightening situation, you're fearful of it, therefore now you either start running away, your heart beats faster, or blood's going to your muscles. So just common sense, see the frightening situation, associated with fear, and now you have a physiological response. Versus on the other theory we just talked about, you have a frightening situation, now you already have a physiological response, something's going on in your body, but then now you're associated with fear. So two ways of looking at it. So as we discussed arousal and emotion, we'll just put in perspective, your body is responding automatically sometimes, you're not even paying attention to it. So considering that we're talking about the body, there is some discussions about how your physiology is, or your face is, or some people don't recognize a scary situation. Some people don't recognize people who are fearful or something that should be feared. Some people can't. And that's because the brain has been kind of altered. But beyond the brain, physically, if there is the output for that autonomic nervous system is not working right, it's going to have an impact on how somebody's responding to stress. So people have sometimes a condition where they have low autonomic output. Therefore, their responses to emotions are going to be what? Lower than someone else. This example of Botox injections, that's actually injecting a botulism toxin into your nerves to what? Arrest the development of those nerves so you don't see the wrinkles in the face. So that's for people who are into trying to make themselves look younger. However, the side effect here is that those nerves have arrested the development of the way that the skin is wrinkling, but then the person's feelings about things are kind of altered. It says people with Botox injections report weaker than usual emotional responses after watching short videos. So basically, it's altered the way their face responds to things. That then impacts how they are receiving information. Another example of how you look at this, if I had a pen in my mouth and just here smiling all the time and just smiling without saying anything, my emotions, how do I adjust to something that I'm scared of and I'm still smiling? Or something that's fearful coming up and I'm still smiling. So your facial recognition impacts how your emotions are going to be. So if I then always frown, always upset, or not even upset, but just the facial features are like that, it impacts the emotions. So there's a connection between the outside of the body and physically how you respond to things. So we'll see, talk about panic attacks later on, but panic attacks, there's some people who have just out of the blue, they just have a reaction and they don't know how to deal with the situation because they don't know why they're feeling aroused. So for some reason, with people with panic attacks, there is this intense sympathetic nervous system arousal. So the heart's beating real fast, hyperventilating. And it could be, let's say, some toxic things that are in your body that initiates some chemicals in your brain and makes you feel like you're really having a panic attack. So that is also something it's impacting arousal, but it's impacting the emotion, but sometimes it's not controlled. That's why it's called a panic attack. So this is showing an example of a little girl who had some problems with a syndrome called Mobius syndrome. She basically is playing with friends, and friends don't know how to deal with her. Even though she may be happy, but she may have this kind of look on her face. She may be really smiling, but her face is structured to look like it's sad. So this can be problematic in terms of dealing with people in the environment. So there are some syndromes where people really can't smile and express emotions. So as we deal with this issue of emotion, there are some places in the brain that you need to know. The limbic system is the collective organization of subcortical structures that manage emotion from your brain. Limbic system, L-I-M-B-I-C, limbic system. So limbic means a border of cells. It's a border of cells that wrap around internally in the subcortical area that work, such as the hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, cingulate gyrus. These specific organs, as they collectively work together, they impact emotional behavior. You can use PET scans and fMRI, that's functional magnetic resonance imaging scans, to see what's going on in the brain as a result of a person going through a emotional experience. So now doctors can see where those areas are that are lit up dealing with emotions. So the areas I just mentioned, let's see, cingulate gyrus, this big blue area right here. Amygdala, little almond-shaped structure. And temporal lobe, right at the end of the hippocampus. You get the fornix that connects the hippocampus to the hypothalamus. So it's a reverberating circuit. Here, all the way around, cingulate gyrus, and back again. So that reverberating circuit, any break in there somewhere, any disruption in the chemicals in there, is going to impact the person's emotional behavior. Fornix, connection site, mammillary bodies, two little bumps that are deep under the area of the brain. I have an image I can show you, but I can't show you, I don't think, the mammillary bodies. If we have the brain and we open it up to search for those structures we just talked about, so all these are now subcortical structures deep below the cortex. If you look right here, you take the inside out, that little structure right there, that's the amygdala. Almond-shaped structure, amygdala. Right there is the hippocampus, right on the base of the brain, but it's kind of like there in the temporal lobe area also. Memory, hippocampus, fear and aggression. Oh, excuse me. Amygdala, fear and aggression. Hippocampus, memory. That's all important for emotion. So they're on both sides of the brain. Hippocampus, right there. It's a seahorse-shaped structure, a Greek word for seahorse. That's why I come up with hippocampus. But then the cingulate gyrus is below this thing right here. It's called the corpus callosum. So all these structures that we just said right here are also right here, but they're controlling your emotions without you thinking about it. Olfactory bulb. Olfactory. I wonder what that's for. Smelling. Smelling is very important for emotion. Animals that don't talk, or mammals that don't talk, they communicate by smelling. So smelling provides a whole lot of information about how they need to respond to things. You know, certain dogs or cats can smell another dog or cat and know if it's time to reproduce or if they should be scared of another animal. That's why they sniff one another like that. Well, we don't necessarily do that, but again, it's very important for emotions, that is, smelling. So to run through this, it's just explaining those areas of the brain that are lit up as a result of seeing where maybe some happiness is located, sadness, anger. So there's certain areas in the brain when you see, according with this being color-coded, different areas show where there's more lit up for a specific kind of emotion. Don't worry too much about this. There's a next discussion on moral decisions, but there's some people who have a problem with their amygdala, the areas for fear and aggression, and therefore they can't interpret people's expressions. So if you look at these, I would actually define what kind of image or what kind of feeling is that. You may say maybe indifferent or indifferent. Here, oh, surprise maybe. Here, disgust. Here, maybe fear, because the eyes are really open, because that, no, that's not fear, that's fear. Anger, sadness. So some people have amygdala damage or problems in the brain, they can't really interpret those facial expressions. So now we're starting to get to really analyzing more so internally in the brain that there are some reasons why some people can't process emotion compared to other people. So some people have limited number of basic emotions. Some people are weak, strong, and pleasant, and can't really respond. So won't get too deeply into this, but there's a behavioral so-called activation system that initiates these things, and some people, it's highly reactive, more so than others. Being involved in the hemispheres, being more reactive and then causing more of a problem with the person being too stimulated. So you can read up on that, but I probably won't test you on that. Again, that whole issue of emotions and what is and what isn't. Here the young lady is crying. So she must be sad. Interpreting emotion involves more than the facial expression. So even though she's crying, guess what? She might be happy because she might be the first to win a gold medal for her country, wherever she may be from. So that's a happiness kind of scenario, not so much sadness. So emotions become very important because it helps to adapt to our environments. Basically, it helps you make quick decisions. If you see somebody's particular look, you know what you need to do to adjust to that. So sharing and showing emotions is very important. In society we're living in, it's not like too much sometimes emphasized to have emotions, but it's very important. We won't go into the moral decisions component, but it just talks about there's opportunities in the brain for people to be able to say what they should and shouldn't do and have some morals behind it. But I don't know if you ever heard of, I don't think they talk about it here, but Phineas Cage. Yeah. So with brain damage, there was a fellow named Phineas, Phineas Cage, Phineas Gage, who actually was working on a railroad. And essentially, this individual had a railroad spike that went up through his nose, through his head. You think he would die from that. Well, in actuality, it didn't go through the vital areas, in the medulla, pons. No, it went up to the nose, but it went through his frontal lobes. This person then suffered from some reports of being impulsive, and his personality changed. So brain damage impacted how he was able to operate in the real world, in that frontal lobe area, frontal part of the head. So we now know there are some areas of the brain that do help people to properly deal with and manage emotions properly. And when you think about teenagers, they say teenagers, the brains may not be as formed well enough for them to make the right decisions when they're younger. So it's that frontal lobe and how it forms that impacts a lot of people's intellectual development. So we now know if you have it damaged, it can impact a person's moral decision making. So that's the first module. The next module is on attack and escape behaviors. So many of these types of experiments aren't necessarily done on humans. They can be done on animal models. For example, looking at rodents in a fighting paradigm. For example, hamsters are spontaneously aggressive animals. Hamsters are territorial animals. Therefore, you can put two hamsters in a cage, male and male, and have them fight. To look at the territoriality, one of them will become dominant, one will become submissive. So territoriality, well, a lot of rodents are territorial. So in a laboratory setting, if you can manipulate that, now you can investigate what's going on in the brain, or perhaps give some chemicals, take some chemicals out. and now you investigate what's happening. So that's why attack and escape behaviors has become very popular in research. So again, one hamster could be the intruder coming into the cage, and the other animal is the resident. So you ask the question, who would win the fight, the resident or the intruder? Who would be dominant, the intruder or the resident? Who's going to fight harder, the resident to stay in its home or the intruder coming in? So all those are dynamics that can be investigated, and what has been found is that you can stimulate an attack by putting electrical energy into this place called the cortical medial amygdala. Now the amygdala, we said earlier, is an area for fear and aggression. So there are different parts of the amygdala. You have the basolateral amygdala, central amygdala, the cortical medial area. So all those areas have a different component in terms of they want fear and aggression. But here we're saying if you stimulate it, it kind of primes the animal to want to attack. So experiments have done with hamsters to study that. So we just talked about the limbic system, but if you break this down a little bit further, here's the brain. Take a cross section of the brain, that's actually a coronal section of the brain, and you know the brain areas from this point on. The amygdala is down here in the temporal lobe area, right here. You blow it up, look at this, the amygdala is sitting right there in color. And all those areas we just talked about, the central, cortical, medial, lateral, basolateral, are all right here. So essentially, those areas have been investigated in animal models. Now we also know that in humans, they operate the same way. So looking at aggression. So do we say that the reason why males are aggressive because they have something called testosterone that makes them more aggressive? On average, men do display more violent behavior than women do. There's something called football and contact sports. Men play that. So is it something that's cultural, or is it a hormonal issue? If you say hormonal, you're more likely relating it to testosterone, but doesn't mean that a woman can't be aggressive. And it's not like they have high levels of testosterone compared to men, but they may have more testosterone than a woman. That's comparable. So hormones could be involved here. The connection to the other chemicals that have been looked at are serotonin, neurochemical. Serotonin and the synapse. Now, what's measured though in serotonin is the turnover. When we say turnover, we're speaking of the metabolites and what is processed as serotonin is being broken down. So metabolites, things are broken down. One of the specific metabolites that's measured is called 5-HIAA. In the book, it stands for 5-hydroxyindole acetic acid. So 5-HIAA is a metabolite. It's called 5-hydroxyindole acetic acid. It's measured, and it says that it's kind of lower levels of in people with depression. Those who never attempted suicide, pretty decent levels, but those who attempted once and also again have lower levels of this metabolite. So something's going on with the processing of serotonin. That's humans. Well, in animal studies, there's been shown that animals who are socially isolated by themselves, and that's always a way to prime them to make them more aggressive, having them isolated by themselves. When you think about this whole pandemic, we're all isolated by ourselves. Social isolation lowers serotonin turnover. And it caused this greatest amount of fighting while they're in isolation. So isolation now for this pandemic may be important for health reasons, but on a social level, it could be some challenges. And here we have again animal studies that have been used. They also did with monkeys. And when you have low serotonin turnover, those animals are most aggressive. So with humans, suicide, depression. With animals, isolation, and with monkeys, aggression. So there must be something going on with serotonin. And this becomes problematic, however, because this issue of violent behavior people have wrongly used this kind of research targeting, let's say, black males in the inner cities. And you can read the documentation in the book about those who profess that since those hyper-aggressive monkeys in the laboratory, hyper-aggressive monkeys in the laboratory, they gave them like antidepressants, Prozac, things to slow them down, stop serotonin from functioning, and it made them less aggressive. So people are scientists extrapolate this, then give it to the kids in the inner cities, black kids in the inner cities, and that's not something we want to even think about. But that's the thought process, pharmaceutical manipulation to make people's behavior change. But again, the animal studies led to people thinking about this in humans. So to move forward, beyond hormones, environmental factors, the environment you live in. Could be a rough situation where you just like only the strong can survive. So if you witnessed aggression before, guess what? You might end up carrying on that behavior. A very intriguing one is this issue of lead, exposure to lead. We all know about what's going on in Flint, Michigan with lead and poisoning of the water. And then you got the lead in the water, and now you look at the society. There's a reason why maybe some people have certain behavioral problems because of what's being constantly fed to them in a wrong way. So again, your environment can have an impact on you having violent behavior. Genetics, of course, there's something called genetic attribution. You can have dizygotic twins that really show that there's some differences. So monozygotic twins resemble each other much more than dizygotic twins in regards to violent criminal behavior. So there's something in the genes that can be passed on. And one area that's interesting about this is this enzyme called monoamine oxidase. Monoamine oxidase. You've heard of it before because we said this is the enzyme that helps to break down neurotransmitters. So there's some people that may have a problem physically, genetically, but the enzyme doesn't work right. Guess what? They're more prone to violent behavior. That's the connection here. And you look at this online, do some research on that, but it's talking about how MAO levels can change and make some people more aggressive than others. So again, this is not an enzyme level, but it's also related enzyme connection, but it's also related to genetics. You can read up on that. Fast forward to fear and anxiety. Is there a distinction between fear and anxiety? Are they the same? No. So, fear is something specific. You know you're scared of spiders. You know you're scared of heights. Anxiety, less specific, non-specific. So, proneness to approach, avoid. Anxiety varies with situations and with the individual. So, there's some people who may have a situation where they don't know quite how to respond, and it may have an impact on how they're dealing with the environment that they're in. So, is it good to be fearful? Yeah, I think so, because you're not. You might get killed. Could it be anxious? Maybe, but it can also impact like you taking your test anxiety. So there's studies that have been used in animals called a startle reflex. You can put an animal in, let's say, a little box, and the box is confined. It can measure movement. You give a loud sound like "woo," and the animal will jump. You give another loud sound, animal jumps. So over time, if the animal knows a light's coming, here comes the sound, the startle is no longer as much. So you can use the startle reflex to investigate emotion. So in the amygdala, again, that's the area in that temporal lobe there. Learned fears are located here. You can actually take out the amygdala, animals or humans aren't scared. You can stimulate it, make it more aggressive. So there are different components of how that amygdala operates that really are affecting our dynamics of fear. So you can use studies with animals, shock experiments. You can read up on this on your own. So the amygdala again has been manipulated, and we now know it's very involved in controlling how you deal with fear and aggression. Something you may not have heard of, but there's something called Toxoplasma gondii. It's a virus coming from a rat, a cat. And so you can read up on this, but it's like this parasite that's in the eggs, and then it gets into the rat, and then it's like it happens where it creates a situation where it makes a rat and a cat be enemies, and then you got this virus that was causing this to happen. So it says a rat approaches a cat without fear and gets eaten. So if this virus makes people less fearful, then it can have an impact, not people, but in this case, the rats. They're now going to be eaten by the cat. But it's the protozoan, or it's like virus that's coming from the mammals. And this is very, not sad, but disturbing, considering that we say this coronavirus now comes from some mammals like a bat and this pangolin, this other animal. And so these viruses really can circulate and cause some problems in our environment. Long-term fear can be situated in an area called the bed nucleus or the striatum terminalis. You can read up on that on your own, but again, it's deep in the brain. There's a little description of where it's actually found. All these areas of the limbic system, again, remember, a border of cells deep in the brain. The bed nucleus of the striatum terminalis is dead center. It says that area helps to establish long-term memories or fears. So here's the inside of the brain, so it's deep, internally inside. Deep, internally inside. So there's a syndrome called the Cliver-Bucy syndrome. See the word Cliver-Bucy, named after some researchers. Notice these animals who had the amygdala removed. These animals, but really monkeys. They had a syndrome where they became tame and placid after a while. If you had some fire, they would put their hand in fire. A snake. Monkeys are usually scared of snakes. They pick the snakes up. So they noticed that the impaired amygdala caused them to not really have any real fears that they were associated with anymore. That's a syndrome. Cliver-Bucy syndrome. Know that? And the last part, dealing with this damage, there was another disease called the Irving-White disease. If you have this area of amygdala not working right because of, let's say, some calcium deposits causing it to wear away and not work right, it says the people then lacked fear and they became fearless. So they couldn't really define emotions of what is and what isn't fearful. But again, this is a disease causing wearing away of that area called the amygdala. So it must be very sensitive to us processing emotion. So the last part, as we deal with anxiety, we start going into stress and anxiety. So here, anxiety again is something that's less specific. As I said earlier, panic disorders are considered to be an anxiety disorder. Also, something called PTSD is considered to be an anxiety disorder. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a result of maybe something happening in the brain where the person can't stop to know that that's a problem to worry about. Person could be in the military, and now they're out of the military. Now they're here in the natural environment, could be at home, hear a car backfire, and they think that they're now in a bunker, ready to shoot back at somebody or someone shooting at them. So that's stress from the environment they were in, and something in the brain is triggering that. Every time they hear that loud sound, they're feeling like that's the same thing happening over and over again. So it must be something going on in that hippocampus. It's not allowing them to break this down properly. So hippocampus, It may predispose some people to have PTSD more so than others. If it's smaller, it may be triggering the disease. If you think about the military, it's problematic for the military to say, oh, the person had a problem before they came to the military. Therefore, they don't want to give you any benefits or assist you because it's saying that you had a problem before you came to the military, not the experience caused the issue. So again, post-traumatic stress disorder could, again, this is beyond the military, it could be just a stressful event you had that caused you to now always reflect on this problem and you can't break it down to move forward in life. The anxiety disorder. So how do you relieve anxiety? In your notes, write down benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines are anxiolytic substances. What is an anxiolytic substance? An anxiolytic substance is something that relieves anxiety. So reduces anxiety. So follow along. You got the video, you can look at it. Drugs like diazepam and Valium are considered to be anxiolytic substances, slowing you down. How does it work? It works by stimulating a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA is not just a neurotransmitter, it's also an amino acid. GABA stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. Again, GABA stands for gamma aminobutyric acid. So, drugs that stimulate GABA are causing chloride ions to basically cause the more negativity in the system. So any drug that's going to stimulate GABA and then make the chloride ions flow into the cell is going to slow things down, making the person feel less anxious. So that's how these benzodiazepines work, to lower anxiety, to make more GABA flow, make more chloride ions get into the cell, slowing the person down and not feeling so stressed. So here's a molecule, a GABA receptor. And so the green is the receptor. If you see, this was closed, this was open. Right there, it's chloride ions. The chloride ions, as they flow in, they get into the cell to slow it down. So this describes what I just said slowly on the video. This is a little representation of, on the top part, that's where the benzodiazepine receptors would be. The GABA receptor, it talks to this receptor, makes it open up, and chloride flows in. It's called a benzodiazepine chloride ionophore complex. So drugs like alcohol can be used to lessen your anxiety. Alcohol is really a depressant, but alcohol effects on GABA receptors help to relieve that stress you may have in your life. And I encourage you to do alcohol, just letting you know that this is some things that happen. And you don't want to mix drugs and alcohol because that can have an impact and make you feel like that. Anyway, that's not what it's really showing you. It's showing that there are drugs that can be used to block the intoxicating effects of alcohol. Rule 154513, read the book, that's the name of the chemical. It's a benzodiazepine inverse agonist. So it's talking to that same receptor we just looked at, but it's blocking the intoxicating effects of alcohol. So there are drugs that can be manipulated to make you not feel drunk. So does that mean we can embrace anxiety? There's some drugs out there that can do that. I don't know if you've ever seen experiments where someone could be scared of spiders or snakes, and that they were tested. You give them a drug, I think like propanol, give them a drug, come back the next day, they can put their hand in the cage and have no problem with that. So the fact that you can make a person less anxious with a chemical, guess what? It's probably even more fearful also with a chemical. Think about that. So last part of the discussion is on stress and health. Let us wrap up here. Even though it's not a wrap up because we're all stressed out right now dealing with the society and the issue with this coronavirus, and now our whole world has been disrupted. But stress is a set of processes that are really, you almost say your body's response to these processes that are going on. This guy named Hans Hans Selye is someone who popularized how we define stress as a non-specific response of the body to a demand upon it. So stress is non-specific. Is it immediate? Is it the home environment? Is it the food? Is it the friends? Is it all these combinations of things that have an impact on your body? They're all non-specific, but they're creating demands on your body, and how do you deal with that? So in Hans Selye's description, he talks about this general adaptation syndrome. So remember this, you got the alarm stage, resistance phase, and the exhaustion stage. So alarm, that's when you first are worried or notified that there's something going on, so your body responds to that. Sympathetic nervous system reaction. So as the sympathetic nervous system reacts, it causes your body to resist to help deal with the stress of the situation. After the stress of the situation, the chemicals are circulated, guess what? You should be able to relieve over time. So sometimes it doesn't happen that way. When you're exhausted from that stress, too many circulating hormones that are causing more demand on the body, and now you have a situation where the individual can no longer respond, their energy is zapped. So considering this, and I'll show you another figure, let's see, later on. Yeah, let me show you that right now. Hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal gland. Each one of those areas has a chemical released that impacts that phase we just talked about. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'm going to go back to that because those words, I want you to remember what they were. But animals who are under stress, prolonged stress, have certain levels of chemicals that are elevated. Animal who is the one that's going to be dominant in controlling things, guess what? It's going to probably be more stressed than an animal who's maybe not having to worry about that. Although you got to beat up, you got to run, if you're scared, but the animal who has to maintain that can probably create more problems in the body, like having ulcers or maybe even heart disease. So HPA stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Hypothalamus, thalamus, pituitary, adrenal. The chemicals that are released here, adrenocorticotropic hormone, cortisol from the adrenal glands. So when you read this slide right here, all we're saying is that from the hypothalamus, the chemical is corticotropic releasing hormone. From the pituitary, the chemical is adrenocorticotropic stimulating hormone. And then they talk to the adrenal glands to kick in cortisol, to get you ready for the stress response. So too much of that circulating can cause your body to be out of whack. Hypothalamus, pituitary, in the endocrine system, and then flows down to the adrenal glands, kicks in the cortisol, which is actually a steroid hormone. We talked about it in another chapter. Steroid hormones can change your body. Too much stress can what leads to depression. So right now on the immune cells, I'd like for you to know that you have white blood cells that are considered to be leukocytes. So somebody could have leukemia, therefore low white blood cell count, therefore they can't fight infections, therefore they get diseases more so than others. So anything that gets into your body is called an antigen. Your body creates what? Antibodies that fight against the antigen. So antigens, bad things that get into your body. Antibodies fight against that. Leukocytes, you find that primarily in your bone marrow. White blood cells. B cells are also in your bone marrow. B cells, bone marrow, makes sense. T cells, thymus gland. They attack intruders directly and help T cells and B cells to multiply. Then you have natural killer cells. They function to hit and target viruses and tumor cells. So your body is already functioning naturally to what fight elements that should not be in your body. So think about this. There's an area of study called psychoneuroimmunology. Your brain can have a lot of impact on how your body responds to stress. You can make yourself sick. You can also make yourself healthy. Be careful about watching this TV all the time and all the stuff about this coronavirus and all the media hype about things, because it can make you sick, and that's probably why a lot of people have lower immune systems, making you more susceptible to having problems. The immune system becomes very important. And as I say in class, you don't already have an immune system, you have a defense mechanism system. The higher and greater your defense is, the better you can fight things that are coming into your body. So cytokines are more intense chemicals, cytokines, interleukin, interferon. You hear some of these other terms when you start reading on the immune system outside of this class, but all those very important chemicals that now scientists are going to be utilizing to try to fight these viruses that are out there right now. So you can look at this slide. It talks about the whole issue of the, like I said, it could be a splinter. Put my hand on some wood, and that splinter's in my hand. Take the splinter out, but the splinter has some bacteria on it. So now your body does what it does to fight to make sure that whatever is on there is not going to get into your body and destroy your body. So there's a whole mechanism that functions to ensure that intruders don't destroy your body. And again, psychoneuroimmunology, as we just talked about, you can make yourself sick. Guess what? You can make yourself well. So again, and as we conclude here, prolonged stress can be problematic. It can reduce your immune system from working properly. It can also reduce the hippocampus, have an impact on, again, remembering what you should be worried about, not being worried about. So you must control your stress. Breathe properly. Here's some mechanisms you can do that. Please read up on that and see. Some people are more resilient than others. Again, that's now a mental component. So again, whatever you spend most of your time doing is what you value. Therefore, if you're spending time on building yourself up to be stronger, you can build yourself up to what being mentally strong. And then not succumb to the external forces that are all continually coming in fighting who you are rather than being who you need to be. So again, resilience is very important. So I need you to continue on, be strong, and see you back in the classroom one day. Thank you.